So this is what Deku was experimenting on part 3. Now I last left off with Deku went back, went back to his mansion and was in his room. And the next day Deku went back to school. Everything went down the same, but everybody into the class. As Alex went to the class they were doing, they're going to the USJ. They go to the USJ. On the way there, they ask about everybody's quirk and they ask about Deku's quirk. Deku says my quirk is just, superhuman strength and all this stuff I've been using it for. They ask him what's the downfall of your quirk. Deku says, I don't have any downfalls. Everybody says, really, Deku, everybody has a limit to what their quirk is. And Deku says, I have no limit. Kirishima's kind of confused and also think he is too. And Momo, Ida, and Ochaku, everybody in the pretty much bus, including Azawa, is confused about how Deku's quirk even works. So they get to the USJ after everybody else explains their quirk, skipping Deku after he said that he has no limits to his quirk, or his quote unquote quirk, well, is an artificial quirk. But yeah, they start and Deku walks out of the ring, and Deku, if you don't remember, Deku's hair costume is Deku. Basically, this is what Deku's hair costume looks like. So basically, guys, sorry if I am a little bit out of it because, well, I am rushing this because I am extremely tired. Like, it's like, you can see the time. It's 1 o'clock. It's 1:40. So I want to get this done with because a lot of people I have a lot of views on what Deku was experimenting on. So just, you know, keeping the what it going. So this is what Deku was experimenting on part 3. Sorry, I already said that. God, I'm so tired. So let's get into it. So Deku goes in and everybody gets started, and pretty much Deku is complimented on his outfit by 13, but 13 goes on with his speech explaining to the class about how quirks can be used to kill, and they're extremely dangerous and they should not be messed around. Deku's looking around, not really paying attention what, um, you know, what was it? 13, Mrs. 13, I don't know, is saying. Deku sees a black dot in the distance. It opens up seconds after Deku sees it, and a bunch of villains start popping out of it. Izawa pretty much charges in and says the same thing I did originally, bodying, folding, absolutely wrecking all the villains that are coming out. Deku and his team are running off, but they do get stopped by the Shadow Guy. 13 gets taken out the same way, and Deku's not really phased at all. They start, and Deku doesn't get teleported with everybody else. Deku just flies out of the way. The villain is pretty much transformed everybody. The villain goes for another blast at Deku trying to teleport him somewhere. Deku dodges it, goes for the villain's middle part of his neck, grabs it, and rips it clean off. Not ripping it, but, crushing it. It's almost suffocating or pretty much choking out the shadow villain until Shigaraki comes up behind Deku and touches his back with all 5 fingers. Deku does get a little sting by this and lets go the shadow guy, but Deku doesn't get any injuries on his body, but only on the back of his suit. Deku's pissed because, well, this suit is really hard to sew and it has like a really rare material that is made out of. Deku's eyes glow red, and he goes straight for Shigaraki. Shigaraki was about to use his hand again, but Deku's about to laser his hand clean off until the Nomu comes out of nowhere, grabs Deku, and throws him down in the ground. Deku is shocked that this Nomu could hurt him. Deku is kind of pissed and grabs the Nomu's head and rips it off without a single second. Everybody that's seeing this, and at this point, Sue did make her own plan, and she does get out of the area with Mineta, but they see this, and pretty much they see Deku rip off the Nomu's head like he doesn't have any remorse. Deku chucks the Nomu's head away, and the Nomu falls down to the ground. Shigaraki is pissed, but also incredibly profound of what this kid can do. Shigaraki does get told that the Nomu was supposed to, kidnapped Deku because the League of Villains were the main operation, the person that, funded One for All. All for One was the person that, basically, um, All for One was the person that basically funded the whole entire position of making a super quirk user, making it out of drugs, quirk enhancing drugs. And one for all was basically, all for one. Sorry guys, I get those mixed up. All for one was the one that funded their whole entire position and asked them and actually forced them to make him. And that's what the guy at the mansion was trying to tell Deku before Deku just killed him. But Deku doesn't know this yet and just sprints right at Shigaraki. Shigaraki steps back knowing that how strong Deku is, and eventually All Might shows up, seeing Deku holding Shigaraki's neck, making Shigaraki trying to burn Deku's hand off or disintegrate it off, but it's nothing working, and his gloves and arm fabric is just being burned, disintegrated off. Deku's kind of pissed that this guy's messing up his outfit, is about to just kill him, snap his neck, but All Might shows up and tells young Midoriya, don't do that. And pretty much Deku doesn't really have any remorse anymore, because Deku was trained by All Might, and All Might does understand that Deku is incredibly stronger than him. So Deku throws Shigaraki down on the ground, and pretty much takes one of his legs, and snaps his ankle. Not, fracturing it, but slowing Shigaraki down, giving Shigaraki like about, I don't know, about 6 months for it to heal back up. So Deku, knowing that Shigaraki can't walk right now, or, run, Deku walks away from Shigaraki. Deku's walking and walking, and All Might says, Deku, you took down that thing all by yourself? Deku says, yeah. And everybody else in the ring, they handle the situations the same. And Bakugo shows up a little later and sees that Deku's talking to All Might all nonchalantly. Deku pretty much sees Bakugo running towards them, and Bakugo's about to run by Shigaraki, but Shigaraki's on his knees, and he's about to touch Bakugo's pretty much arm disintegrated clean off. But Deku does see this as a chance to, provoke his excuses everybody of like half of the class seeing him kill that thing, which that happens. But Deku flies over there, pushing, pretty much, pushing Bakugo down. But in that second, what was it? Oh yeah, All Might walks, pretty much right, after Deku tackling Bakugo down. Bakugo is pissed, but Deku says that villain over there was about to touch you. Deku looks behind himself, and sees that pretty much Shigaraki's about to touch All Might's, calf, or the back of his calf with all 5 fingers. That short second, Deku has a burst of, pretty much adrenaline, and shoots Shigaraki's left hand clean off with his laser vision, pretty much cutting it clean off. Shigaraki is bleeding out. At this point, the heroes show up, and they're trying to get to Shigaraki to the hospital, but when he's on the hospital bed, he passes out, and he dies from blood loss. Deku does get, a little slide, a little pass, because, well, he did do it for self-defense. That's what All Might said. And he did save his life, so All Might did say he saved my life. So, Deku was given a suspension, but he wasn't, expelled or anything. Or, put in jail. Even if he was charged with jail, Deku couldn't be beaten. Come on. Deku was literally, he thought he was God, but Deku did have his God complex be pushed down just a little bit by the Nomu, hurting Deku just a little bit. Deku Deku was in his room in his mansion, thinking about what happened, and we switched to the League of Villains. Tech and we meet Shigaraki still there. So Shigaraki in this universe was actually cloned because if they can turn a quirkless person into a literal godlike being with an incredible quirk, they could easily clone somebody. So pretty much they want Deku's DNA, but Deku ain't gonna get that DNA that easily. And they need to really, a whole piece of DNA from Deku, like his bone marrow, or like about a gallon, or like a big sample of his blood, not like a hair, or like a wop of spit. They needed some. They needed like a big chunk of DNA, maybe even a bone, or even a hand. That would be perfect. So Deku was sought after by the Deku villains to get his DNA, but it would be impossible for Deku to get loose blood, so they had to get some bone marrow from Deku, but like can't get bone marrow from Deku because well he cannot be hurt. He can't be penetrated or cut. So it's gonna be pretty hard to clone Deku. And Deku doesn't lose hair anymore because well his hair is like, you know, invincible. So yeah. It was pretty much impossible to clone Deku. They just need somebody strong enough to weaken Deku enough so they could cut into his back, get some bone marrow, or get a couple gallons of blood, maybe even some flesh. So Deku was thought after by the League of Villains even more because Deku was, in theory, he did think, or he didn't even. And Shigaraki did see through the eyes of his clone because it was like a chip built into the Shigaraki clone brain. So they saw how Deku killed the Nomu, and they did see how Deku, lasered off Shigaraki's hand, killing him. Shigaraki did realize that Deku didn't have any, human remorse anymore, or didn't have that much, and would not hesitate to kill anybody in the League of Villains. So later, everything else in the League of Villains does happen the same. Dobby joins, um, Toka joins. Everything is fine in the film department. Get back to that later. So after the whole entire USJ incident, everybody gets a couple of days off, and Deku's just in his room, and he goes out in the back of his mansion yard, throwing a couple balls out of the atmosphere, just blowing some steam a little bit. He hears a knocking on his door, and he super speeds over there, seeing that pretty much it's a girl on the other side. Deku opens it and sees that it's basically, well, Ochaku. Deku's confused, but Ochaku tells Deku that she's in love with him, and Deku's confused, but also interested. Deku Deku grabs pretty much Ochaku's arm and says, "Come in." And you can imagine what happens after that. So I won't get into detail, but you know. So yeah, I'm gonna get off there, guys. See you guys later. Bye.